Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead. So, what are you looking at?
Corona.
Okay.
Sold for 20 billion. Profit was 1.3. Multiple of 15 point.
Any dividends?
No dividends. It was a cash sale. 70% bank finance. 30% they put up.
We didn't figure it out yet. How it's paid 30%. What we found out was 70% bank loan, and now we looking at the time how they paid.
They paid cash, didn't they?
Well, the seller received all cash, so 70% of it came from the bank. The other 30, presumably, it just came from cash they had on deposit, but maybe it was shares or something. I don't know.
And deals like this are easier than some of the deals you've presented. I mean, the irony is that big deals get financed. And so that bodes against me telling you to deal, little deal. And it bodes that, well, then why am I not doing fucking elephant at least, if not dinosaur? But the big deals don't close all the time. And if you follow the deal right, I mean, Andres is closing now he's closing about 90% everything he touches. In the beginning, he was closing about 50% everything he touched. But on the big deals, it's easier to get, hundreds of millions or 50 or 80 million out of the banks. And when the banks are on a roll, and when they overstretch and they start financing bridges that are too far, and of course then that's what happened in 2008 and 2009. But interest rates have to double again from now before you're going to see your universe change. They have to double. They've doubled in the last year. They have to double from here before it's going to affect. And it's not going to affect our ability to do deals. The only thing it will affect is that instead of doing deals at 2.5, 3 times, I don't want you to do deals that are less than 1.75. And because, even though you've got ostensibly world-class guys on the board, blah, 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 I mean, not too much shit has to go wrong for you to drop. And if, let's say, the covenant from the bank is, they lend it at 1.75, let's say the covenant from the bank is 1.35, not too much has to go wrong for you to go from 1.75 coverage to 1.35 coverage, or below the coverage. And again, some of the banks will, even though you're going to know it, an algorithm is going to tell them you're at 1.5 now, and they'll send you an email. The real way is they should call you, but they send an email. The bankers are lazy. But as soon as it drops below 1.35, I mean, they're on you like stink on shit. We're going to give you 30 days to cure it. If it drops again, they're not going to give you 30 days to come back to you and they say, okay, where's the collateral? And the only 2 ways you come up with additional collateral: one, somebody puts it in cash, or collateralize it with an asset, or you sell stuff. And it's never the right time to sell. It's always the wrong time. It's like, Allah knows, that it's always the wrong time. I've never been asked for, to put up more money or re-collateralize anything when I had the money. It's always when I don't have the money. And then I'm running around. And I've been very good at it. And the board will then start to come up with their connections, as I love to use the example when Governor Kerry called Walter Wriston at Citibank and said, hey, how much we Walt, we need 115 or 125. We wound up getting 155 million on $85 million purchase. We bolted on 2 more companies. But those are the kind of people that you want to step forward. And they will. As long as they have confidence in you. But again, the first thing, you got to convince the chairman that you don't need any money. And then with him, you convince the rest of the board that you don't need any money. Sometimes that easy. It depends on the power or the strength or the nudging or the pushing that the chairman's willing to do. How hard he's willing to lean on the rest of the board members. And they're all very professional, depending where you are in the world. especially in Germany. They wouldn't say shit if it was in their mouth. And in Ireland, it's, if you know what I mean, they're not as concerned where you're going to get the money because they figure somewhere, someplace, you're going to get the money. You know, so they have a tendency to be not naive, but they know, where there's a will, there's a way, and they're going to get the money one way or another. In other parts of the world, it's not that easy. But the deals, I mean, again, I don't know if you were there when I got the email. You had already left. I told you about the $1. Well, I didn't get all the details, but Black Beauty, the one I write about, apparently just did a hospital where they left $1 million in the hospital. So she got the hospital for nothing plus $1 million. Another one I just started to read. I'm 23 years old. My name is some African name. And then he attached an email he sent me when he was 20. Okay? And I just bought this house. And I forget what kind of car it was. A Ferrari. I forget what kind of car it was. With no money. If you don't ask, you don't get. And the thing is, not from birth, but virtually from birth, the house that you lived in had a mortgage. Your parents made payments. Even in Ireland, they might not have made every payment, but generally speaking, they made payments. And that's in your head. That's in your head. Just as it's hard to break the cycle of poverty when you're living with gangsters, and you see your dad, stealing or your brother stealing, that's what you learn how to do. In this case, when you're brought up in a reasonable, not reasonable by my standards, but a reasonable household, you live hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck. Not everybody, but 95% of the world is paycheck to paycheck, and so it's tough to break that cycle. Once you do your first deal, all of a sudden, again, I've said it many, many times, Pandora's box. Well, fuck. It worked for Gabriel, and it worked for Belgian Waffle, and fuck, now it worked for me. And all of a sudden, you're looking like you're 6 inches taller. And I like when Sally said, Roberto and I met for a drink a couple of years ago, and she said that, is that Roberto? He floated in, like he's on the Back to the Future thing. He was, and he's a good guy, lad. And now he's exited twice. And during the regular seminar, you see that. So what's the scam here? What is your astute observation, or the lack thereof, tell you about this deal?
That was as far as we got, really. We just worked out that we had to Google it, because obviously it wasn't in the papers. And then we reverse engineered or reverse calculated the beta.
Now, in the B schools, the information they give you, like in Harvard, the Harvard kids, the reason why it takes 2 years to get an MBA is because it's a combination of they're too fucking lazy, the kids. They wait to meet, and let's say an MBA class only meets maybe twice a month. And so they wait, and they don't do any of the due diligence in themselves. They wait to ask the questions of the professor. And that's why it takes 2 years. Our youngest son, who went to one of the better programs in the United States, it's just unbelievable, because the kids don't have any initiative. And there's no sense of urgency. And 9 times out of 10, they either borrowed the money to go there, or their parents are paying the money. Occasionally, the kids get a scholarship. The scholarship kids seem to be more energetic. Okay? But they just don't have the same chutzpah, or whatever the right word is, the same grit. And it just, it doesn't take 2 years to go through 30 cases. It just doesn't. And of course, they're fucking around. They're doing this. They're doing that. They're not just there for an education. Of course, they say the better schools, it's the experience of the school. Okay? I worked my way. Even when I came back from the military, I had to work my way. I had a job Otherwise, the meager amount of money I got from the GI Bill wouldn't support me for sure. And so you have to work. And a lot of the kids that are going to the more prestigious schools like Harvard, I mean, don't have to work. They have a source of income. And a lot of the kids. But it shouldn't take that long. You reverse engineered it, what, in 20 minutes?
And also they established complete market dominance with that acquisition, and they were able to introduce a new product to their global network, and it was a massive boom for them. So it's a great deal.
At the time, it was there was 3 big acquisitions. Heineken bought one smaller one, and Saab Miller. And here, Anheuser-Busch, it was the highest multiple. Maybe at the time it looks not at the best deal, but looking afterwards, you can say with the lifestyle brand of Corona, they make a big deal out of it.
They paid a 30% premium for it, but in the passing of time, it was money well spent.
Do you not look at these cases from that time going forward instead of looking at it from hindsight?
Well, then there was a lot of skepticism in the beginning. But 30% premium now, I mean, I've seen 100% premiums. Elon paid, roughly speaking, about 50% more than Twitter was worth, doing the numbers. But if you did the numbers vis-a-vis EBITDA and stuff like that, he paid maybe 100% more than it's worth, maybe even more than 100%. And although he had plenty of banks that were willing to support him, Ellison, who emailed him or texted him, "I'm good for $1 billion," and then Elon texted back and says, $2 billion would be better. And then Ellison said, "Okay, $2 billion." This is all on text. So Ellison put up $2 billion, but they were betting on him because of all the special, extraordinary stuff that he's accomplished in his lifetime. And he's still a young guy, okay? And so, but now, since that happened, and partially because his alligator mouth has overloaded his hummingbird ass, with some of the comments he made, the bloom is slowly coming off the rose. So it really depends. His future, and a Tesla stock is worth half of what it was, and some of his other assets, like SpaceX, etc. It depends what he does from this point forward.
I'm sure he'll repositions Twitter in a fantastic way.
Well, yeah, the odds are he will, okay? But he hasn't really tripped since he pitched that first $500 million that Obama gave him in a grant in that, I forget what the hell, where he invested it in. But, he's a guy that you'd bet on. I mean, he's at least a 500, 600, or 700% batter. He's going to get it not just over the goal line, but out of the park. And that's historically what he's done.
Yeah, I think they're trying to build one app where there's everything. Like in China, I think there's an app called Weibo. It's got just one app and it's got everything. There's no other Facebook. Your banking is in there. Yeah. Everything is in there.
That's what he wants to do.
That's what he wants to do. I think not WeChat, Weibo. WeChat is just like WhatsApp, but
It's just going to be like a payment app.
yeah, you just have one app and it's got everything.
You don't need all the other apps, right? If that app does what I think you're saying or what it proposes it's going to do, or does, you don't need all the other apps that you have. I don't have any apps myself, but anyway.
My wife's cousin works for Twitter, and he's one of those ones who are served, and he's one of the head engineers there. So he used to work with the previous CEO, who was an Indian guy, and now, yeah, he's one of those up there in Twitter. So, I mean, it's just something that I found out because he doesn't call anyone anymore, like, he's just busy working now. But, yeah, it's...
Well, you'll be calling a lot less people yourselves. I mean, even though I use the example of the 3 cell phones I have with 800 numbers for my kids that I've never got a call on, but I I have 2 additional cell phones. The one UK, and I just closed my Asian phone, my Filipino phone down, because I didn't use it for 5-6 years, or since 2015, 7 years now. But my regular phone, I have a US and a UK number. One, they're turned off almost all the time. So, and people got used to when they call, and I don't have a nice message on the other end. I just, the call didn't go through. I used to have a derogatory message. If I'm not picking up the phone, it's because I don't fucking want to talk to you. But now it goes to, it turns off. But and again, I told you, a lot of you guys, maybe all of you, get emails on your cell phones. I just, I don't understand the logic behind that, because then your time's not your free time, because you're forever looking at your fucking cell phone. And rarely, even when you're in this acquisition mode, rarely, maybe 1 time out of 10 or 1 time out of 25, do you actually have to respond then, as opposed to going back to your office or going back to your home, etc. But now our time is being taken away from us with all the gadgets. That's not counting all the horse shit that you see, WhatsApp and those kind of things. On TikTok, I told you I didn't know I had a following on fucking TikTok until I went to the airport a couple times ago. And all that eats up your time. And you've heard me say this before. I delegate everything. And I'm thinking about the transactions in that 50, 60 hours a week that I consider, it's not work, but I mean, if you had to keep track of it, a lot of that 50, 60 hours, I'm watching the news, and I just told the group, the more even-handed news on the television is Al Jazeera. It's even-handed. It's a little bit skewed, but it's not skewed like CNN. It's not skewed like Fox. It's not skewed like CNBC. But it's a little skewed, and Al Jazeera is one of the news, and it's, I don't know if it's Qatar-based, but
it is Qatar-based.
Qatar-based, but I mean, they're pretty even-handed. And when they have people, that are attached to military units or whatever, you get a different view. Same battle, CNN guy there, and a BBC guy was just caught about 6-8 weeks ago. He didn't call it faking. He was pretending like he was near the battle. And with camera angle, I mean, we're as close to that fucking battle as he was. And of course, he got embarrassed. But I mean, they've got guys on the news like the guy, the lawyer that went to school with Obama, who got caught a year and a half ago masturbating in front of, on a Zoom call, young students, okay? Now, I don't know how he got a job again. If I'm going to do something bad, they're not going to forgive me, I assure you. I'll be through. I'll be toast. And but the world is in a forgiving state. And part of that forgiving state that's wrong is they forgive poor performance. They forgive lack of accountability. And you can't run this model successfully. Gabriel just did another deal late last night, early this morning, so he's at 23 now, which is the record.